Afternoon, all. Welcome to the second part of this webinar, which we started on Wednesday precisely. The second part is actually going to be looking at the challenges, the tools available, and the idea of managing the work-life conflict that could arise. Before we start, I would advise that every question we have should be on the Q&A. Let's try and put the questions there. And in order to allow us to treat the one that really appeals to all of us, if you go in and you find out that a question has been asked and you are interested, vote for that question. At the end, we will try and look at the ones with the highest number and start from there. My co-webinar presenter who presented on Wednesday is around Akin. He is around, and together we will lead you into this second segment of the. Now, a little bit about the objective. There are actually three main objectives that we are aiming in this webinar. The first is for us to understand what the new structure of work has for organizations and individuals. The second is to review the tools needed to function in the new structure. And the third is to learn about the consequences of the new structure of work, what to do to be effective in work and life domain. So precisely these are the three objectives that we have in these two seminars. Now let's look a little bit on the difficulties. Now these difficulties you see here are not total, they are not all that can be. People can have peculiar situations which are not listed here, but the major ones we know is, the first is the need to manage your time. Now your time belongs to you. You are at home, nobody is monitoring how you use it. And that can be a problem. Because if you don't use it very well, you will not achieve what you want to achieve. And there are many things that want to take your time. So the challenge is, how do I now manage this time that I have autonomy over it? The second is, there are new tools. And in these new tools, investments are involved. How the quality of these tools they evolved. And then for those of us that really have not been working remotely, there are a lot of things we need to learn. Which is the third one, is the need to learn new ways of working. The fourth is fear and uncertainty arising from the situation we are in and the unknown future. The other one is parenting in crisis. When the time we are working normally, you take these children, you drop them at school, you come back in the evening, before 1 hour or two, they are ready to sleep. But now you are going to stay with them 24/7, and they will still be the children they are. The other one is distraction from home, TV, the need to sleep. Now you can wake up anytime you like. There's distraction from social media if not properly used. Thank God that there is no league any longer. That would have been a very big issue. The other one is boredom. You become tired. You've been doing the same thing all over again. And the last one is the social consequences, domestic violence and baby boom. So generally, these are the challenges that we have during this period. Now we will take these challenges one by one, identify them, and then see what we can do when managing them. The first is challenges in difficult times. It's the need to manage your time in situation of autonomy. The one thing there that will help you is your use of time management tools. This is the time when you don't just wake up and say, whatever comes to my mind, I will do. You will discover that you will not be able to cover the things that are necessary. You will be distracted. So you must have a plan, and that plan must be consciously made. It's not something you just wake up and say, I am going to do this, I'm going to do this. It's something you sit down and decide that these are the things I need to do. These are the times I need to do them. Put them down and consciously do them. So the tool I'm going to show you is what we call the importance and urgency matrix. With that tool, you have 4 types of works, things that will come up. The one by my left up here is what is known as urgent and important jobs and assignments. These are jobs that actually are emergency and they are always in crisis. Now, if all your jobs fall into this, it's a sign that you have either been procrastinating or you've not been properly planning. This quadrant should really have very few jobs in them. For example, you might have planned your day, your week, and your manager calls you and says, the MD wants this data. He wants us to analyze this data and get it to him. This is where that data will call you because the MD needs it. So if you have crammed all your work here, it becomes very difficult how you do it. Now, the second one is the one that is not very urgent, but is important. These are long-term goals. These are where you actually do the planning. Most of your work should come here and you focus on them. For example, I'll give you an example with what is happening to me now. In May, 1st and 2nd week of May, I have over 20 webinars with students. Between now and then, every planning I'm going to make will come here. If I don't plan and procrastinate, when it is time, all of them are here. They are urgent, I will be in crisis. So those are the jobs, type of jobs I will put in here. And I will plan for them so that when the time comes, they will not. The second is, in this time of COVID, we sit a lot. I need to exercise. Experts say you need 1,000 or 10,000 steps every day. And no matter how large your house is, you can't achieve 10,000 staying there. So I will need to put in exercises. I will need to consciously put in time for exercises. So they would appear here. Now the yellow portion here is the one that is not urgent and is not important. They are really distractions. Something that comes here is some of the social medias we have. Someone that calls you and says, oh, go into this social media, there's something happening there. What is that thing happening? These are distractions, and if you do not take care of them and leave them where they are, you will have problems. Now, the last one, which is the red one, is the one that is urgent, but not important. These are interruptions. For example, I know that some of you who are into project, one of the conditions for your project is peer review. Assuming that your colleague who needs your peer review for you to be part of the peer review for his project, he needs this work to be done tomorrow. But it is this morning, he is sending you an email that you are going to be part of this you have planned your day. You have made every plan. This is an interruption. I'm not saying you wouldn't take care of it, but if you have planned your day, then this individual should not interrupt you. But if you have time, you will attend to it. So everyone listening to me should be able to say, these are the things I need to do. And these are where they fall in any of these quadrants. If all your works are in urgent and important, then something is wrong somewhere. I expect all your assignments to be under not urgent, but important, where you have to plan for them. Some of them will come from urgent and not important, your colleagues or your friends who need them. Some of them will be on distraction. But when you are handling the red and the yellow, be very careful, because these are actually where you get the time wasters that will infringe on your ability to handle this top one. Now, how do you now use the information you have here to plan your month, your week, and your day? Now, there are three figures here. The left one here is a monthly planner. If you watch here, you see to-do list. This is where you can list all the works you need to do in the whole of the month. Then you use the one on your left to itemize weekly the jobs that you have listed here that will come up. The middle diagram is the weekly planner. This is where you now take the week, for example, week 1, you now come and distribute them to Monday to Friday or Sunday, depending. You list all of them here. So you have extracted from your monthly planner the week 1, you have put it here, it is now inside here. Now the one by my left is the daily planner. You now take, for example, Monday, you begin to allocate all those works on the time available. If you watch clearly the one here, you will see this guy has school drop-off. He has a lot of things here that he has. Marketing team meeting, everything he has to do. And by here, he itemizes some other things that are there. So you take whatever is for the day here, you put them here. This is what guides your day. This is what you will use. If there's anything you didn't cover here, then during the next day planning, you see what you do. Now, my advice I always give people is never you schedule the whole of your day. Leave what I call contingency hours. The hours where you can accommodate your manager coming to you and telling you to do what you have not planned for the day. You've got to answer your manager, or like your friend who calls you and says, I'm in a fix, I need you to be at this peer review. Then you can accommodate such a person. Now, if there's some distractions from your home you have to do, then you can take those hours, contingency hours, and accommodate all of them. So this is how you move from the urgent, important matrix, you translate them to what you will do. The daily work will now be every day. You take that diary and then you know what you have for the day. Now, how do I now start to implement this? Normally, at the beginning of before the beginning of the month, let's say the last week of the last month, you will do your monthly planning. When you do your monthly planning, as you enter the week you are going to enter for the first week, let's say your week starts Monday. Then on Sunday, you will extract the weekly planning and then do the daily planning for Monday. At the end of Monday in the evening, you sit down, extract the Tuesday planning, look at the Monday. If there's anything you didn't do, you accommodate it in Tuesday. So you do this so this is done the beginning of the month. This is done weekly at the beginning of the week. Daily, you do this. And if you do all this, you will discover that most of your work, you'll be able to accommodate them. And you will be able to do things without anybody coming to you to force you or to tell you, you must do all this. Now, you must be conscious of the use of your time. Make sure you follow this. You have to be very disciplined to follow them. Otherwise, you will discover that when you are expected to render account for what you've been doing, there will be nothing to render. Remember that in this COVID time, when you are working from home, your manager is not necessarily tracking the use of this time. What he's waiting for is, if on Friday there is a deliverable you are going to give to him, that is what he asks. If you can't deliver it, he uses it to mean that you are not using your time effectively. There is no other, he cannot come to you to tell you 1 a.m. do. No, it is what you deliver to him, your inability to deliver what he wants on Friday, that tells him that you've not been managing your time very well. Now let's go to the tools. Some of us, we have been using Zoom, some use Microsoft Teams, Google or Adobe Connect. There are some companies that have been into remote working. Some of us, it was tossed on us by COVID, but unfortunately, we have to work with this. That means that we have to acquire them. Our companies have to acquire them, and this is an extra cost at this time when companies are cutting costs. We have to learn them, and it is our duty to learn them, because the company is not going to send you to a formal school to learn it. Now, we need good internet connection and good power. All of us know the quality of internet in this nation. It was bad before. Now that everybody is in the same bandwidth, it's a challenge. It's something that we are going to live with, but it can be a really, really difficult situation. Now, you can maximize the use of smartphone. Smartphones are this is the time when you should look at all the functions of smartphone. To be honest, we have not been using up to 30% of the functionality of smartphones. Smartphones can do a whole lot. This is the time to really find out those expensive smartphones you have, what really can they do? Now, there are some productivity softwares. Microsoft Office, all of us know, but there are some unique ones that are unique to your profession, which you either know it or you're going to. Now, we have to learn how to write emails. You are not going to be there for this person to pump into your office and say, I don't understand this email. The person is going to act on the email you sent. The pressure that you have is the same pressure he has. So we need to learn how to write email clearly. Now, needs to learn. We need to learn new ways of working, new tools and softwares, as I've said. Now, how can we go about this? If you go to your YouTube, you will see a lot of videos on learning these tools. If you see by the right here, I have 4 links to 4 videos. These videos represent Zoom, Google, Adobe Connect, and Microsoft. If you go to this, even if you are a learner, you will get a lot out of it. From this, they will lead you to specific areas. We are using them, and there are things you want to do, you don't know. You can go to those videos and learn them. It's compulsory you do it, because now you are going to learn on the job. Nobody is there to teach you. The second is organizations are encouraged to develop what I call learning assistant. Now, learning assistant is like what we know as Google Assistant. Now, Google Assistant does everything, a lot of things. The company learning assistant is tailored towards the company. And this is a website where anybody who has an issue, he has a question, can go. Either you do what we do in Google Assistant, find what it is, or you post the challenge there. And experts who have done it will post results to you. And those of us who are using these tools, as we explore through the video or through actual use, we go to this learning assistant and then we post in there. So the company has a web-based learning that all of us can key into and we learn. Now, it is necessary that we consider every opportunity to learn. This is not the time to wait for someone to teach you. This is the time to take your destiny in your hand and learn. Remember that if you don't learn, it will affect your use of these tools, and eventually it is going to affect your productivity. There are some challenges you cannot. For example, take the issue of electricity. This morning we were on the webinar and the lady had to leave the house to go to the office to participate because they had no light in their estate. These are the challenges we have. These are things that organizations should look at. If people are critical to you and they need these things, we must have a human face and begin to do it. Internet is an issue. If you see most of the internet, they have one that is for the populace. Everybody is there, the speed is slower. But they have a higher one where if you want to pay, you go there, the traffic is not much, but they are expensive and the user is expensive. This is the time when organizations should begin to look at how do we help individuals to get this necessary tool to be able to perform. Now let's talk about fear and uncertainty. Organizations, they have their fears. Fears that their revenue is dwindling, they cannot operate, they might even die. Uncertainty that they don't know when this will end. Even if it ends, are they able to meet up with a new way things will function? When you come to the individual level, you are afraid because if you look at Nigerian situation has moved into what they now said is the community transmission. Now everybody is a suspect. Everybody is a suspect. So you are afraid that you might contract the disease. You are afraid that a lot of things will go wrong. Uncertainty, you are not sure whether your salary will be paid. You are not even sure when this thing is going to end. So these are the uncertainties and fears all of the organization has, the people, our employees, and all of us we have. This is the time when both the organization and the employee must communicate, because at least we have something in common that we need to share. There is an error that organizations make. They think that they are the only ones that are plotting their options. They think they are the only ones that are thinking about what to do. But they forget that these people, immediately this COVID problem started, a lot of people started to look at both their finance, their cash flow. They started looking at options. Am I going to be on half salary? Am I going to be on no salary? They started to adopt new measures to cope. So don't think that these people you hired, that they are smart when doing your job, but when at home and when doing their own life, that they are not smart. They are very smart. Some suggestions to what you are about, and that is where comes in. Now, what type of communication will be effective in this time? There are what I call the characteristics of this communication. The first one is it must be a two-way communication. It must be a two-way communication. Two is it must be truthful and factual. You must say it the way you see it and the way it is to you. 3, it must be with empathy. I can have two-way communication with you, but what is happening is I will allow you to speak and I'm listening for the purpose of replying you. Empathy means I understand what you are saying. I go into how you feel and how you are. And when we communicate in this way, it builds trust. And with trust, we can sit down and begin to look at what we have communicated, what each person is passing through, and we can draw up plan and we collaborate to do it. So to recap, this communication must be two-way. 2, it must be factual and truthful. 3, it must be with empathy. Then there will be trust and there will be collaboration. Now, the last 2 characteristics of the communication is 1, you must not be extremely pessimistic. Some people will come paint a terrible picture of what is happening and paint a terrible picture of future. It is not inspiring. People are now they look at the whole situation, they lose hope. You mustn't go to that extent. You must also not be extremely optimistic to the extent that you make people to believe that there is nothing happening, that changes are not required. You want to stay at that middle ground where you are putting things the way they are, and you are now acting on that. So it is important that this communication continues. Is it going to be one and all? No, until we get to the other end. Even if we get to the other end, it happens. Now, the problem with this communication is if an organization does not have credibility or trust with employees, it's a very difficult thing to build it in this trying time. If an organization, immediately the thing was announced, the first thing it did was to distribute letters to people, that organization has actually demonstrated that they have no empathy, that those people are actually tools which they use when they want and they can discard any moment. It doesn't build trust. This is the time when you must be able to trust each other. And it comes, remember they said trust is something that you don't legislate it, you don't command it, you earn it. Trust does not respond to hierarchy. The fact that I'm a CEO does not mean that I can legislate that everybody should trust me. No, I have to earn that trust. Now let me talk a little bit on parental crisis. I alluded to this, the fact that when things were okay, we had nannies who took care of our children. We take them to school, they come back in the afternoon, the nanny is there. When we come in the evening, we have few time with them, they go to bed, and the cycle continues. When you are now at home, the nanny must have gone. You have discharged the nanny. You don't need the nanny, and these children are with you. When a child needs, you cannot come and tell the child he should stop crying. You will do something. It's an extra challenge that those of us who have little children at home, we have to work with. Now, what can you do? Organizations must cooperate. Flexibility in working and delivering goals must be enshrined in the new policy. What do I mean by flexibility? Instead of telling people to give you your deliverable at the end of business, let them do it at the start of business. What does that do? When these children have troubled by evening or something early in the night, they have slept. the person can now be flexible, work on what that deliverable is to deliver it the following day. So we need a lot of flexibility. In your planning, put that flexibility there, because whether you like it or not, you cannot discard these children. They are your responsibility. Now, the other one is distraction. The television is there. Like what I said, now is not a time of football, so that is gone. But there are still other things that distract your attention. You may want to sleep. There are games to play. Now, the solution to this is self-discipline. Once you have planned, have self-discipline and make sure you stick to it. Don't let anything allow you to be derailed. The distractions will be there, especially when you are sitting on a couch like this guy with the television there. But you can put off the television. That is within your capability to do that. Now, boredom, learn to change tasks if possible. In other words, if you are doing something that involves figures, you might change to other things. Or you have a good rest always. Always factor rest into your daily planning. It's good to factor a time when you stand up and you go to rest. A colleague once said that during this period, he worked from morning till evening. And what he discovered was that his nerves could not respond. So what he now did was every morning, the first thing he does is to go for exercise. So let us learn that. Now, there are things I call possible consequences of lockdown. Here is domestic violence. There are families that, because they come back late, when they come back late, everybody will just go. The domestic violence is little, but now you are home 24/7. Another option of it is where your intimacy becomes so much that you begin to make babies. So companies should also factor in that 9 months from now, we might have a lot of people that will be ripe for maternity leave. So these are consequences that all of us will face. Now, if you look at all these consequences, there are 3 things that will help you in going through them. The first is self-discipline. That is your own. The first is self-discipline. The second is you manage your time and prioritize accordingly. You manage your time and you prioritize accordingly. The third is you look at your values and the definition of what success in life means. There may be certain things you are carrying, but you need to ask yourself pertinent questions. I have been carrying these things. Are they really necessary? I will give you an example. I was watching a reverend father who was conducting a service, a mass, and he normally asks the few people their questions. And he asked a woman, he said, what lessons have you learned from this COVID-19 and the lockdown? And this woman said, one thing I have discovered is that there are so many things I put on my body that I really do not need. I have started asking myself, all the investments I make in these things that I really do not need. If I don't need them in COVID-19, it's likely that I can live without them in any other time. So to her, that is the lesson she has learned. Now you need to sit down and begin to ask yourself some questions. What have I not been doing that is important to me, that I should be doing? To put it in another way, try and Stephen Covey, when he was talking about 7 of effective people, one of them is start with the end in mind. I always ask people, figure yourself on that day when the end comes and God said we should come. Try and write the epitaph that you will want to be read. Look at how you are living. Write that, because that is what people will be feeling when you die. If what you've written down is not what you want people to hear and comment about you, then this is the time to go back, to look at your life again, to look at how you have lived, and to begin a new way of life. I always tell people that COVID-19 has brought a lot of pain and challenges. But you will realize that COVID-19 has also given us an opportunity to really look back and see how we are going to live our life post-COVID-19. The organizations should and must help, but you, the majority of the part of going COVID-19 and coming out successfully. There will be changes, and if you don't want to make it, it might be difficult for you. Now let's go into this last portion of this presentation. How will you define a successful life and career? What factors will you consider in evaluating the career and life? Now I'm going to launch a poll, second poll. I will list out certain things. I want you to select as many as possible that you will use in evaluating whether your life is successful or not. So Ejiro, please launch the second poll. Ejiro?
Yes, sir.
Launch the second poll, okay?
Okay.
Okay, Ejiro, how many have voted? Okay, good. 99%, 85% spirituality, health 78, leisure and social relationship 56, career 77, personal development 87, family 88, and others we don't know 16. Now you can see how dispersed that is. Now, what you do not, anyone you don't select in those things will not appear in your evaluation of your life. If I never selected personal development, you will discover that it's not going to be important to me. It's not even going to appear in my radar. Now look at all this is a particular things in life that all of us will focus on. It's from here actually that I extracted them. Now you discover that the emphasis, if I had asked you on a scale of 1 to 10 to rate the importance of each of those items to you, a different result will appear. So everybody will have opportunity to make choices on what type of life we want to live, what will constitute this life that we want to live. Now, when we extract this, if we live an unbalanced life, we incur what I call work-life conflict. If you overemphasize on work to the detriment of other lives, there will be a conflict where you will be effective in the work domain, but it will affect your performance in other areas of life. And what you will do is that you will live an unbalanced life. An unbalanced life has many consequences. The first is that it will affect your well-being. The second is you're underdeveloped in some areas of life. Anybody that health is not important to him cannot eat healthily, he cannot exercise. Low self-esteem, high level of stress, you will be overstressed. And eventually you will discover that you live an unfulfilled life. You have health issues, and it will eventually affect your productivity. An unbalanced life is not worth living. A life that is one-sided, a life that concentrates on work and has no need for other areas of life. When it is time, there are some of us, we think that what is most important is to make this money, take your family to every part of the world, buy everything they need. And we don't know that your family needs more than money and other property. They need your presence. They need your emotion. They need everything about you. There is this story of one time when I was teaching work-life balance. A lady gave a story, and the story goes like this. Said she was a banker, and she would leave in the morning and come back very late. They had a very good nanny, dedicated and took care of these children. But she was someone that they didn't trust, that they couldn't leave so many things with her. So one day she was going to work, and he told the husband, he said, please, honey, my jewelry is on the bed there. Please make sure you lock the door. The small boy, about 5, 6 years, had it. So when she came back, the small boy asked her, said, Mommy, can you leave your jewelry with the maid? He said, no, how can I do it? I don't trust people to handle it. He said, okay. If you can leave your maid, with the maid, but you leave us with the maid. So ourselves and the jewelry, which one is now more important? The lady said that was a wake-up call for her. and she adjusted her life pattern, it may not allow her to become the MD of that bank. But life is not about maximizing. Life is about optimizing. That means you should be prepared to make trade-off. You should be prepared to make trade-off in order to have the balanced life that you want. If you want to live a one-sided life, it does not help. Use this opportunity to find that thing that is lacking. Now that brings me to a tool that you can use to tune your life. It is called the wheel of life. Now, if you see the circle, what is at the center here is your core value and purpose. Without a reasonable and good core value and purpose, life is meaningless. That's why it's at that center. The center is labeled from 0 at this center to 10 here. If you see here, you see this is a life, career, business. This is family and friends, community. This is finance. This is romance and intimacy. This is health, social fund, personal spiritual development. These are the things you voted and said what is important. Now, the wheel of life allows you to draw what your life looks like now and to draw what you want it to be. Then you identify the gaps in the areas of life. You brainstorm on why the gaps, and you draw up a plan to help you move from where you are to where you want to be. That is the purpose of wheel of life. Now, what I'm going to do is I will take you through drawing what that life is today, what I want it to be, and we identify some gaps. Some of us may have many gaps which we cannot work on at a time. Then priority comes in. We prioritize, work on them one after the other. Now I'm going to stop to share this, and I'm going to share a blank. We're going to share a blank word. Now, this is this wheel of life. That is the wheel of life. That is the center where core values are. Now, what is here is those things. Now, here, I will call here career, which is CA. CA stands for career. I will call here personal development. Now, I will draw another one from here. I will call here family. I will call here social. I can go ahead to put all the areas of life that I have selected. I can go ahead, but let's use this for the purpose of illustration. Now, to establish where I am, I will ask myself a question. What level of satisfaction have I achieved on career? Let's say it is a 9, which is somewhere here. So I will mark there. That is a 9. I will ask, what of the family? What level of satisfaction have I achieved? Let's say it is not as good as this. It's a 6. So I will put a 6 here. Personal development. Maybe everything has not been working very well. So personal development, I'm on a 4. There are certain things I should want to do for myself. On social, I'm somebody that likes very good social. I am very good here at a 9. Now, this is the will that represents my life today. That inner one is the will that represents my life today. Now, I will now go back to ask myself some questions again. Now, where do I think I want to be? Career, I'm on a 9. I may want to still be there, but let's assume that I can make some sacrifices and I leave it at an 8. Social, I'm living outside, so from 9, I want it to be a 7. It's good to be a 7. Personal development, I want to go a little bit high. Family, the same way, I want to go a little bit high. Now, this is my new, the black is my preferred life. Now, what am I seeing? I'm seeing a gap on almost all the areas of life I want. This is a positive gap. This is negative. No, this is negative, positive, negative, negative, and positive. So what I now have is that in family, FA, I have a gap. It is negative, as it were, because I am repairing it. Career, there is a gap too, but this is positive because it gives me. Social, there's a gap, which is negative. On personal development, there's a gap, which is positive, which is negative. This is positive, this is negative. So here I have 4. There are 4 gaps. Now, what I would want to do is, let me look at the family. What is this gap? What is the gap? The gap could be that I do not have enough time for my family, no time for them. It could be that I do not provide for them. Then what I now have to do is, what should I do to fill that gap? Now, if it is no time, I might start by saying every day I will have at least 2 hours with my family. I have 2 hours with my family. If it's that I'm not providing for them, I will look at what are their needs and at least provide 70 or 80% of those needs. These are concrete things I want to do. Now, if I go up and I look at, let me take social. If I take social, what is the issue? The issue is I spent a lot of time. Outside. Or I spend too much money. Now, what do? I will have to reduce this. Maybe if I may say, let me reduce it by 3 hours. Here, I will reduce the amount of money that I spend. These are action points that I want to do. Now, the next step would be, I will put a timeline. This must happen now. what I have done is, by the time I do this, I've reduced these two to where I want to be. And the other two, I will take them again and begin to reduce them. Now, one thing you will notice here is there are trade-offs. Life, you do not have all you want in life. You can't have all. You've got to trade off. And if you are not willing to trade off, life is not worth living. So here I have 4 gaps. I have taken care of 2. I will now go in my diary. I will now put the action points I would want to do. One of these for releasing 2 hours might be when I'm coming back from work, I move straight to my house and spend the time with my family. Now, before I leave this, let me explain something which people, when you talk about balancing, people misunderstand it. Spend at least 2 hours daily with my family is the goal that I have set. Now, those of you who are accountants, you know that towards the end of the month, you are involved in balancing account and in reports. Some of you work excess at that point in time. You may not have these 2 hours with your family, but with discussion, they will understand because they know that this is a one-time off. That is how you integrate your work and your family. They know that daddy or mommy has to do this because it's a one-time off. The problem is when that one-time off becomes a continuous something. That is where the problem is. One time off, you can. Your work also, you will describe that there are times when you take time from your work and you handle family issues. For example, if you have emergencies in your family, you have to handle them. It may be when you should be at work, you have to handle them. But if you are always having an emergency that takes from your work, then there is a poor planning somewhere. And it's a deeper problem which you are not facing. So it's an interesting thing, which if you decide to do this, and this is a very good time to do it, you will discover that you have positioned yourself to take advantage of anything that comes. Now, how long would you do this wheel of life? As often as possible, especially if you think there is an aspect of your life that you are not happy with. Try and look at the whole thing again. Maybe any of these things have shifted and you are unaware. You brainstorm and you find out what is happening. People who have done this, they really have lived a life that, I'm not telling you that they live a life that is not without challenge, no. But at least when they get to the end of that life, they would themselves know that I have done my best within the circumstances that I find myself. So this is what is known as the wheel of life. And all of us, everyone, you have the opportunity to do it. If you can combine this and the urgency and importance matrix and the proper planning, you will discover that your life will be interesting. You will discover that you do things because they add value to your life, not because everybody is doing it or because it is the in thing. These 2 tools are very, very important, and they would help you to really reshape your life and to live it in a way that on that day, when your life will be celebrated, you will be happy that something good came out of it. Now I'm going to go back. I'm going to unshare this and go back to this thing we've been using. Okay, this is what I now let me try and conclude here. The first thing I want to make is that we should all be prepared to make quick and urgent changes when required. The organizations are making it. If you look at the way the COVID-19 is going, people have been postulating the things that will happen. People have been saying when it will end. Nobody is sure when, but it calls for a change. Change in how work is done, change in how myself I approach work, change in all that we do. And when it is necessary, we must change. Now, let me, under this urgent change, I will address the relationship between the employer and employee. If you look at what is happening, revenue is going down. Cost may be going up because of certain investments you have to make in order to stay and work remotely. This is a very poor time that organizations can use this hard part of motivation to motivate. That's the salary, the bonus. This is the time when discussions are on. What do we do in the near future, in the interim, when this thing is hard, is coming? Those are changes organizations must make. Employees must also make their own changes. Since it is not business as usual, we must all work collectively to maintain the little revenue we can. And organizations must ensure that they do not give the impression that these people are tools, which when things are going well, we value them. But immediately there is nothing going, we drop them. It is a very poor way, it's a transactional way of business. It doesn't work. Even if after the COVID and the people you have treated poorly, they come back to you, most of them are coming back as mercenaries. And mercenaries leave, immediately they get a better offer in another war front. You don't want mercenaries in your organization. You want people who are willing to contribute to your organization, but you too must be willing to bend a little. If on the first day of COVID, you cannot even help your employees a month or 2 weeks, then something is wrong with the way you've been running your organization. For you to offer sack letter to everybody on the first day of COVID speaks a lot about how you run your company. I am not saying you will continue with it, but it speaks a lot about you. How you arrive at releasing them will not be a surprise to them. What might surprise them is the interpersonal communication that went into you releasing them. And it will linger for long, that when the COVID ends, you may not have people who come to your office with their whole being to work. Now, the second conclusion is this. It may be a long process. Please do not give up. In everything, you see, somebody said that challenge is actually opportunity in disguise. In other words, within every challenge, some people see opportunity. Others dwell on challenge and it will destroy them. Listen to experts. They will give you clue as to when this thing will end. Plan with them, but be conscious of how those variables are changing. If you see the variables, no. If you look at the Western world, you will discover that they have various ways they are planning this COVID-19. Have you wondered why they started monitoring the number of cases, but they've dropped that? They are now monitoring the number of deaths. Because they noted them and they are waiting for when they have invited you. That's what they are waiting for. They have seen it that there is a process there. How long is it? It might be a month, it must be a week. It can be any time. But let us always realize that when you are using the input of experts, it does not remove you from looking at how you can make meaning out of it. The third one is the foundation of personal effectiveness is accurate evaluation of values and self. Anyone without a value will live for anything. Once you don't have a value, you will subscribe to any value that is available. This is the time that you could look at what is my value system? What do I believe? What have I accepted? And what will I not accept? Evaluate yourself. Wherever you are, accept that that is where you are and plan for it. This is not the time to tell yourself falsehood. So, self-discipline, remember, self-discipline, plan your life, and evaluate where you think your life is going. The fourth law of natural human interaction is be moderate in everything, keep the right balance. Moderation is very good, and always keep the right balance. The right balance is not equal emphasis. It means that no part of your life is surcharged in anything they need. If it is rest, you are resting. If it's exercise for your health, you are doing it. If it's work, you are doing it. Your family have some, every part of your life, you are giving them what they need so that you have that balanced life. And in conclusion, I will repeat what I said earlier. It is good to start planning your life, planning your way with the end in mind. What do I want people to recognize me for? If you start with that and you look into your life today and how you are living will not write what you want, this is the time to go back and use the tools that are given here to put yourself in the right perspective. Now, before we go to question and answer, like I'll remind you again, go to the question and answer If you see any question that you like there, before you put your own vote for it, we are going to look at the numbers. I would give out another poll. Ejiro, give out the last poll. I will want people to react to do the question that is in that poll. Please be honest about it. This is not the time to. So go ahead, answer that. Okay. 9% strongly disagree. 1% disagree. That is about 11% really did not see anything in this webinar. Maybe you take this opportunity to go into the question Q&A. If there's anything, then we have about 90-something saying they agree. Okay, so we are going to go into the question and answers. Now, one of the things has 6, the one that has 6, it says here that you have just mentioned that some of the challenges in difficult times are fear and uncertainties. And to handle these challenges, communication is key. What do you do when you can't communicate, or the type of communication allowed by the organization doesn't have the characteristics you listed? Now, I will be living in a fool's world if I tell you that the type of communication advocate here is applicable, is that all the organizations do it. It depends on the type of leader that is running an organization. There are some organizations that all they do, their interest is in the work, not the people. The only communication they know is the one they shove down to you. You cannot question it, you cannot. Now, this is not the way a normal organization should run. A normal organization is a place where people come to work because they want to, not where they come to work because they have to or they ought to. Now, if you're in a situation where you can't even communicate because nobody is going to listen, and you cannot, or there is a downward type of communication, it's an unfortunate situation. It's something that, unless the leadership sees the reason for this type of communication I'm talking, it becomes very difficult to do anything. What do I advise? It's a place where you stay, but when the situation becomes so difficult that it begins to affect everything around you, you might want to begin to look at some other plans. The worst thing for somebody to do is to work for somebody who does not value you. It's a very terrible place to work. Most organizations that have succeeded, they have practiced this type of communication that I have done. They are an open type of communication where you are free to say what you want to say. Most multinationals, they practice it. The case you are describing is very rampant in SMEs. In SMEs, the manager puts himself on the position of he owns it, he knows how to run it. This type of thing will happen if you either believe what he wants to do or you don't. But most organizations that are this in, they would do it, okay? 7 people says, please, can you share once again the slide after poll? We will discuss it and I will have no problem, but I need to look at the policy existing. But I know that the webinars I've been attending, the slides have been shared with me. I don't see a challenge, but I would discuss it and then I will, by the time they are giving you the video of this, we would include it there. They said, this is great, practical and applicable approaches to all facets of our daily lives. Thank you. This does not require, thank you very much. But for the lockdown, some of us do not have 2 hours in spend with our families. How can we achieve the balance given certain nature of our jobs and the associated pressure? Let me tell you, I wanted to, if we had the time with this, I wanted you to read a case. I wanted you to read a case, a real life case. A young man, very intelligent. He was working and he's made it clear to everybody that my work is all I need. He set for himself to become a GM after working for 4, 5, 6 years. And he was hitting on it. Everything he did was for his work. He married, everything. The wife had to leave her job in order to take care of the children. But by the time he got the GM, he wanted more. The thing became a problem, and the wife had to summon the family. And the family came. And the wife told him that, look, you have become somebody who goes to hospital every day. You drink malaria drug when even you don't have malaria. Your children is affecting them. Myself is affecting me. You either change or you will live with a divorce. It became a wake-up call, and he has to change. My advice to you is this. Why do you spend so much time in the office? Go back and find out. Is it necessary for me to spend this number of hours? Could I schedule my works better to release myself to have time for my family? I want you to do this thinking. You are living with a mindset that this is how my work is. But I am not telling you that this is an abnormal way of working. Go and look at it again. If after you looked at it, this is a job that wants you 24/7 so that you don't have any other thing anywhere, then sit down and ask yourself some questions. A doctor once told me when I was working, before I came to Lagos business, when I was working in one company, he said, look, there was a choice. I was going to the hospital and I had problem. And he said, look, I have given you every medication I know, but from what you've told me about your work, you have a choice. The choice is continue this way, and when you retire and leave this place, you will retire with sickness, which will live with you forever. Or make some changes on the job. Believe you me, that thing caught my attention. And the thing I thought I could work the whole day in the office, I discovered there were certain things I should do. And I did it, and I was able to get my life back the way it is. So please, I want you to go back and look at your work setting again. Because what is happening is one day we'll all leave that job, but to be honest, you may have ruined a lot of things before you leave. Now, another story I want to tell you about is a story when I was a petroleum engineer. I was a young man, and here was an elderly man, a white. He was in his 80s, and he was still working. And one day he called me to his office, and he said, I should sit down. Asked me my age. I said, are you married? I said, no. He started telling me about his life. And he said that when he was young like me, he sank himself into his work. He was working, nothing. His family, he was making money, giving them, they were spending. Nobody was complaining. But by the time he got to the age he said he wanted to retire, he retired and there was no field to go to. So he told me he is back because there is no family to go to if he goes home. So he took a contract, and from what he told me, he will only stop when health is so bad. Then from there, according to him, said he will move to the old people's home. That story caught me very early. And when I was derailing from it, I will always remember it. So these two stories, they are real. Think about them and go back and look at how you are settling your job. Now, the other one says, I wish there was a super strongly agree rating in this webinar. It's extremely relevant and very easy to understand. The wheel of life experience is a lifesaver. I've put less into my marriage and family, and will go back to the wheel and make the necessary adjustments. Thank you. Well, the other one says, what do you advise post-COVID to get competent workers, given the high level of incompetent, unemployed staff? Akin, would you want to say something about this? Akin? Unmute, Akin, unmute, and then say something about it.
Can you repeat the question?
Okay, you get the question?
No, which one?
The question that says, what do you advise post-COVID to get competent workers, given the high level of incompetent, unemployed staff?
Well, I mean, it's not a question of post-COVID. It's what are you doing now? The same strategy are you getting the right quality of employees now? You see, the most important thing is this, the way I say it. When we are looking for employees, there are two things that I consider very, very important. One is technical skills and knowledge can be taught. It doesn't take you very long to teach people how to do something when you talk about competence. What is the third component of competence, which is the
Aki, you are not audible. Can you raise the volume of your?
Can you hear me now?
Fine, it's clear now. Okay, go about it. Go ahead. Start from beginning, please.
Okay. Two quick things. What you're doing to recruit competent staff, I think it's not a question of what happens post-COVID. It's a function of what are you doing now to get competent staff. I think there are three things that you're looking for. It's about the knowledge of the staff, it's about their skills, what they know, how they do things, and it's their attitude. And very often you can teach somebody the skills and knowledge. It's the easiest thing to teach. The problem is the attitude of the person, because that determines how the person uses the knowledge and skills he wants. So the question, therefore, is, are you recruiting for attitude? Because if you succeed in doing that, what?
Okay. Well, the other thing I need to add there.
Right the storm with the person, given, of course, the caveat that you sorry, can I?
Yeah, you are cutting.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead now.
Okay. So the only caveat that I want to add to that is what you have already said. How do you treat the employees? Because the way you treat the employees is also a function of whether they are with you because they are stranded or they are with you because they are committed, and the two are not the same. So it's about recruit for attitudes, treat them with humility and empathy, and you get good employees. The only reason an employee does not perform well is that he doesn't either know what to do, he doesn't know how to do it, or he just wouldn't do it. And that's about attitude. I hope that answers the question.
And then let me just add one thing. You see, when you talk about competent and incompetent staff, the competent staff, there are things they desire in the workplace. And if your organization is such that has what they desire, then they come in. Most time, we actually want to bring this competent staff based on salary. We use salary, we use benefit. But most people who are competent, they need something more than that. So like Aki said, you should also look at your environment, your talent management, everything together will help you. Now it says, I have some associates who take this period for holiday. They have so many stories why they cannot meet up with work. How do you get them to understand the need of the time? I will advise whoever asked this question, I think Ronke, please, if you can register for the webinar on the 30th, there's a webinar on how to manage employees remotely. Register. One component of that webinar is performance evaluation. If somebody thinks this period is holidays, the question is, do you think that employee is somebody that should even be in your employment? Should he be there? Because everybody I know is working so hard to make sure that the organization remains afloat so that him or herself can be afloat. Now, if somebody is taking this to be holidays, the question will be, you may have been carrying somebody who you should not even be allowed to be in your organization at all. For somebody to take this to be a holiday, in other words, he wants the company to die. Everybody is working, even those who are, everybody is working to make sure that the organization has a little lifeline to stay afloat, so that if the organization stays afloat, they themselves will stay afloat. And somebody is saying it's a period of holidays. This is the time when I think a lot of them think that a performance evaluation can only be done when I am in the office. They don't know that the structure is changing, where we can evaluate somebody who is working remotely. There are ways to evaluate that person. I think they don't know. Their own is that, well, since I'm not there, how is he going to evaluate me? But there are ways. If you come to that seminar, if you learn those ways, maybe you will talk to them. And if they are your subordinates, by the time you give them the first appraiser to tell them that I may not know how you use your time, but there is something I'm expecting at the end of the use of your time, I think they would sit up. What will you advise workers who work on the outskirts of Lagos spend much time on the road, arrive office late. They have issues both at work with colleagues, boss, and at home with spouse. You see, this case, this issue has an economic part and has the other part. This is somebody who has long commuting. The distance to commuting, there are two things you can do to stop commuting: work remotely or move closer to the office. Now, if I tell you to move closer to the office, I may drag you into new financial implication. So it's something that you need to sit down. The problem we have in this part of the world is that we don't sit down and draw cost-benefit analysis. If I'm living in the outskirts of Lagos and I spend X hours, X amount for house, and if I move close, I spend Y is more than X. So I'm going to spend extra of Y minus X. But I'm going to gain in all this relationship you put here. I'm going to gain. The problem we have is the money has objective value, but these gains, they are very subjective. I can't put money into it. But if I sit down, I will be able to understand and draw a cost-benefit analysis to see if reducing the commuting time and incurring more expense would be a better option. Now, if your organization has the option of working remotely and they want you to take to it, that would be a beautiful thing for you to do. But if not, and you must show up every day, your priority should be, how do I lower this commuting time so that I can have my life, have my relationship both at work and at the office. Let me see. I think we are running short of time. Okay, I think that's all I can take now. So thank you. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your this thing. It's very interesting that all of us are here. We are all learning. I myself, I am daily drawing my life, daily thinking, asking myself what I'm to do. Even at my age, I'm daily shuffling and doing things so that on that day, somebody will stand up and say, this is how he affected my life. This is what he has left in me. This is the legacy he has left. So let us try as much as possible. Let us not live in the today. Let us look forward and see the future that is bright before us. So thank you all. And I hope to see you on, those of you who are going to come on that Monday, I hope to see you. So the webinar is ended. Thank you very much.